Hello and welcome to the NDTV Dialogues, a conversation of ideas. This week, our big idea, it's an idea which is growing by leaps and bounds, is the exciting Indian world of startups. The sky seems virtually the limit. 8 Indian startups are already in the global $1 billion club. We've got some of the best in the business here with us right now. Joining me is Narayana Murthy, Chief Mentor of Infosys. He also now heads a SEBI special panel on startup funding. He's also, of course, been an angel investor in many startups. Also joining me is Mr. Iyer of Incube Ventures, which, as the name says, incubates new ventures, focusing specifically on social entrepreneurship. Also joining me is Rajeev Srivastava of Urban Ladder. It's another exciting new startup creating waves with a $77 million investment, including from Ratan Tata. Thank you all very much for joining me. And Mr. Narayana Murthy, thanks very much. You're an angel investor. You're also heading the SEBI panel on startup funding. When you meet all these young whiz kids for whom the sky, as I said, is literally the limit, does it remind you of those heady days when you started off Infosys in a room with just a few like-minded people?
Well, I think, times have changed. During our time, there was no venture capital facility. Banks had no confidence in startups. Therefore, I can understand how the current crop of startups are not that much worried about finance, that much worried about spending money as we used to. But I look at it as an advance in the scenario, and I am very happy that these youngsters are not saddled with worries on the issue of finance, and therefore they can come out with wonderful ideas, much better ideas than we had, and they are competing in a much more competitive space today than we did.
Rajeev Srivastava, comment on that. When you say you don't have to worry about finance so much and it's $77 million, that sounds like, okay, now you don't have to worry about anything. But what's the reality of it? What inspired you to get into this knife's edge game, in a sense? And you just said that you were in Infosys as well. Yeah,
I was influenced quite a bit on entrepreneurship by Mr. Narayana Murthy, and it took me 10 years to start off on my own, along with my co-founder Ashish. Our starting point was that Indians' homes has not changed in the last 20-25 years after liberalization, though India has been eating better and India has been dressing better. So that's when we said, let's make millions of Indian homes beautiful, and that was the starting point. For us, we believed in the power of the digital platform, and we said we have to get great quality products, greatly designed products, and use the power of the digital platform, give a fantastic level of service that India has never seen before, because you're going to the Indian home and the person needs to have trust in buying you as a brand, and that was our starting point. And 3 years, the capital has certainly helped, because we are able to experiment a lot more on product, on tech, on marketing. To get smart talent, you need a lot of money, and to that extent, that's one lesser worry for us to focus on the core business. So it's been an exciting journey in the last 3 years.
How did you convince someone like Ratan Tata to say invest in a startup like yours?
I think it was sort of mutual. Mr. Ratan Tata was interested in investing in startups, and the great part is he's an architect by himself, and he was super interested in us. In just the first meeting, he loved our design philosophy, he loved the way that we are approaching the problem, and to have someone like him on board, obviously we would love it anytime, and that worked really well to that extent.
Mr. Iyer, come in, because your focus, and you've of course also set up India's first social venture fund, is much more on social impact. I know that's something that interests Mr. Narayana Murthy a lot as well. In a sense, the world of startups seems to have no barriers. I mean, it can be from literally from selling furniture to providing healthcare solutions to looking at literacy. But do you think, in a sense, the vastness of this also leads to a sense of uncertainty? What is this about? Which startups are going to actually make the grade? Which are going to last? Which are here for the long run?
See, basically, social venture funds, social ventures are a very different ball game altogether around there. They have been existing through and through, okay, either in the form of charities, in the form of particular personal interest and so and so. But they are maturing into a different sense altogether. Nowadays, whenever you take up any social ventures, they had existed as maybe NGOs or something like that around there. They have started finding a space for themselves. They are either providing service or goods at the end of the day. people are buying. The market is there at the bottom of the pyramid, or you may call it the plinth of the pyramid. That's a large market. Whether he is selling his product around there, or Mr. Narayana is selling his software product, or Tata is selling his steel, where is the market? Market is there in the very large number of that pyramid which is there around there, and they are also capable of paying for the products and everything, but the right price. So, when a social enterprise, I look at it from a different perspective. Social enterprises are much more sustainable in the long run. I don't need to look around for the competition around there. The market is very large. I got enough amount of space around there. They also bring in a whole lot of sustainability in the business model itself. When you evolve your business model to suit the social needs of the society. And most importantly, I look at it from a different perspective, whether it is a social enterprise or a technology enterprise or something like that. What is it providing to the society? What does my society need today? It needs employment, livelihood for millions of people, which the government or the private sector or public sector cannot provide upon. Which is going to provide it? How do you give a need of income to the people concerned? That millions can only be worked upon when you actually evolve enterprises across. I look at startups as an excitement opportunity around there. If you look into it, or India, maybe there are around 2 to 2.5 crore companies, maybe small businesses to large businesses and everything around there. If they start growing by around 5 to 6%, I have got a notional figure, our GDP will grow by double that. That's okay. That's simple method of calculating. I don't need to go through all the statistics and calculations. If at all, out of these growing enterprises, if let us say around 10 or 20% of the very innovative in terms of technology ideas or business ideas, my GDP growth will jump by around 20%.
And you've actually looking also at a 200 crore investment for the social funding, for your social ventures. You think these are numbers when you talk about it, is often related very much to business models. You think that same model could work here?
Everything is a business at the end of the day, right? Everything is a business at the end of the day. You need to be investing into it. You cannot just manage majority of it through borrowing and things alone. You need to have investment into these businesses. If at all he goes tomorrow with his model, as Mr. Narayana Murthy going to the bankers once upon a time, who are actually designed to lend to somebody, his bankers do not find it very convenient. He had to find his own investors around there. These startups require investors, not lenders. Okay, that is a different ball game. We have to work upon it very carefully. That's why Mr. Narayana Murthy, under his guidance, we are creating a whole gamut of investment into these enterprises, and including technology. They require it. After all, as of today, Mr. Narayana Murthy's generation of IT technology started as a newfound technology. When he was actually working on the bankers somewhere in early 90s, they won't even understand what exactly he's talking about.
Mr. Narayana Murthy, just again bringing that bit in, do you think in that sense this is the natural progression, the cusp of the second phase of a revolution perhaps that you started, because at that time the focus was much more on perhaps the hardware, or looking at the facilities you provide, the creativity, people who ask why doesn't an Apple or why doesn't a Google or Facebook come out of Indian creativity. Do you think we are now at that phase, the natural progression really of that revolution which began in the early 1990s?
Well, in some sense that's right. We are at the second phase. While those days we were concerned about hardware and mostly software, of course. Today I think we have a very wide gamut of investment opportunities. We have a very wide categories of entrepreneurs, those that are interested in SMAC, social media, analytics, cloud and mobile. We have people who are interested in social entrepreneurship. We have people who are interested not just in technology, but in other areas too, as urban ladder is all about, and as money is doing. So therefore, I think we are now at a stage when the confidence of our younger people is so much higher than what we were when we started out, and therefore I think it's rightly so. We are experimenting with ideas that have much higher risks associated with it, but at the same time the rewards are also high, therefore the expected value is also high.
What's interesting, of course, is that whereas your At your time, we still had to deal a lot with perhaps bureaucracy and licenses, etc., and wait for hours in the corridors of power. Startups have been liberated. In fact, I actually think being based out of Bangalore has kept you all very far from the corridors of power and bureaucracy and red tape. Is that one good thing, perhaps?
Well, right now the whole of the entrepreneurial ecosystem has grown up. What is happening is all the allied services also grown up. So there are companies that will take care of everything from company formation to VAT registration to everything, because that's how, and you know, to the extent that finance has been sort of taken off our mind. I mean, you still have to put effort to get the finance. Company formation and all of that stuff has also been taken care of out of the mind. So we can really focus on the product, on the technology, on the customer service part of it, which is super critical, right? Because then it makes you innovate a lot more and a lot more rapidly on just the core of the business.
What's your take, of course, then on net neutrality? Because that became such a huge issue here, because you had some of the big boys of startups first backing it and then realizing the huge backlash which came from the average online user, and many newer companies who was like Zomato said, for instance, that we could never have reached where we were if we had issues like this, or if we had the big players gang up. What's your take on it, and do you think that what actually comes out of it now is crucial for the government to take a call which perhaps is leave us alone rather than actually get involved?
Yeah, true. We are big believers in that in terms of net neutrality, and what's happened is even someone like Facebook had to sort of revisit their entire Facebook Zero deals, and we believe that it has to be an absolutely equal ecosystem for people to come in and for consumers to decide what they want and what they should purchase, instead of sort of, you know, side-based promoting different brands. I think the entire startup ecosystem is very heavily behind this, thanks to a big part of what media has done into this. A lot of bloggers have done in this space. I think the whole of the education has spread a lot faster, and the entire startup ecosystem is now one single, you know, entity behind all of this.
Do you think that's important, Ms. Iyer?
Absolutely very important, actually. This is where exactly a regulation plays a very important role, whether it is in financial regulations or net neutrality regulations. Regulation is an enabler for creating a level playing field for everybody. That's very much required in any startup situation. Okay. So that's something you do work upon. Government has to intervene into it, has to work upon, put some systems into place. Otherwise, it just actually gets hijacked. And that's not something very conducive for the industry to grow in the long run, because it's advantage to one or two people. But that is not something a society can depend upon. So we have to evolve some very systematic, properly enabling regulation capabilities around there. Yes, we are actually maybe become over-regulated in the process, but then I am sure Mr. like Narayana Murthy sitting on such committees and everything guiding it ought to be able to bring in some equity into that. And I am sure the same thing in case of net neutrality applies.